to start with some context setting. Good afternoon, everyone, to this panel. We're going to be talking about empowering Indians and unlocking potential through upskilling. Sometime in February this year, India became the most populous country in the world. Average age today is about 25 years, with 40% less than 25 years. And 250 million Indians, which is, for some context, it's about 75% of the US population today, will be entering the labor force in India by 2030. Now, this is the opportunity of demographic dividend that everybody talks about. But we're going to use this wonderful panel today to dig a little deeper and go beyond this very obvious thesis. Now, what are some of those challenges, which the critical challenges facing this thesis? I think number one is 47% of Indian graduates, and this is a conservative estimate, are unemployable. Historically, we have always solved for excellence over equity, and we have not much time left before our demographic dividend stops being a dividend, about 15 to 20 years. Now, today we therefore have a three-pronged problem. We have the problem of relevance in terms of what is being taught in our colleges versus what the industry needs. We have a challenge of remediation, which is the fact that most of our public schools fail our students and therefore create issues of access to job markets. And then lastly, we have the challenge of results, which is around, do institutions really take accountability for the programs that they launch? We want to now, use this panel to ask ourselves, what will it take to unlock and catalyze the dividend given these challenges? Each of our founders here today are solving for this in very different ways, and also across three very different segments in India. So I'm going to request each of them to just help us understand how they're building or trying to solve for this. Maybe we can start from the other end, Pratham.
So we're trying to build India's Harvard Business School at the Masters Union. We are trying to see whether we can crack the top 10 global rankings in business schools through Masters Union. And we wanted to do that to do a couple of things. One is to really understand what a good education system, a good pedagogical model actually means and what it might look like. So at Masters Union, we're doing an experiment where we have no exams, no lectures, no slides, no grades, no full-time professors, where students actually build small businesses, do these small 0 to 1 journeys, and that's how they learn business, by actually building business. And we believe that this is around living the case study rather than studying the case study. And we are seeing some good success with it, and we really believe that if we can figure out what pedagogical model actually works, then just the way the Harvard Business School, the case study method is so ubiquitous across the world, perhaps we could be the next ubiquitous pedagogical model in the way we teach, which is learning by doing. And that's how we think about training for outcomes and training for results.
Yeah. So at Adda 24/7, we are trying to create level playing field in terms of access to education. Our target audience is primarily people coming from smaller places, tier 2, tier 3 towns and villages. If we look at geographical landscape in India, 85%, more than 85% people come from smaller places. And that's where the biggest challenge is in terms of access to education. So, and these challenges are of various kinds. For example, one of the biggest factor which we can talk is the financial condition or financial position of students or families living in those places. And then comes the education ecosystem. And mostly, if you look at smaller places or towns in India, the education is historically has been provided by government itself. And their state of education has suffered a lot over the years. Although things have changed, things have improved over the last few decades. But still, if we want to consider that with education in cities or let's say in developed countries, it's completely broken. So we want to visualize a situation where everyone, every person, every student in a village, town, they have equal access to education, high quality education. And at the same time, as I said, economic condition is one of the big problem. So we also want to want to ensure that everybody is able to afford that high quality education and somehow create that level playing field where everybody can aspire to grow big in life, everybody can aspire to get good job for themselves and for their family. And essentially, to make it happen, we provide online education. So it is all through mobile app. Anybody can access, anybody can come on a platform, they can access education, and they can choose the desired career in their life.
Yeah. So I think what you mentioned, Divya, is absolutely right, because as a country, we have always been solving for excellence. It's the top 1%, top 5%, which we have been continuously solving for. And we see that, okay, those students have done really, really well, not only in India, but outside of India as well. What as a country, which we really believe need to focus now on is the tier 2, tier 3 and the tier 4 segment, which is the middle of the pyramid and the bottom of the pyramid. And that's where the skilling, the entry level jobs, this become very, very critical. So what we need today is primarily someone who is actually solving for entry level white collar jobs in the country, because let's say the premium jobs are already being solved. The good quality candidate comes in, goes to great institutions and do very well in their lives. All the skill gap and everything that we read about, talk about, is primarily in the tier 3, tier 4 segment. Now, obviously we talk about a lot of such things, that how it can be solved, whether it needs to be solved within the college premises, whether it some kind of finishing school, do we be solving for scale, or maybe we should be solving for fewer students, going deep with them. So all of these are sort of open-ended questions, but I genuinely believe that we will have lot of such companies. Few of them will be solving within colleges premises, few of them will be creating a lot of finishing school outside college education ecosystem, few of them will be very horizontal in nature, which will have a very small duration, maybe courses on YouTube, few of them will be going very deep. So we will be seeing all of these different companies coming up, and it's definitely not a winner take all play, because these are very, very different segment, and every segment has their own need. So you will have lot of these companies coexisting. So somebody like Masters Union, which is creating program for up the value chain upward of maybe $30,000-$40,000, and somebody like us who are creating programs, let's say $5,000. So it's a very, very different segment, and all of these players will be coexisting. And at the same time, we'll also have a lot of players who will be training students outside college, after completing their college as well. So just to sort of answer your question, I'm generally an optimist, so I don't see that that as a country we will miss out on the dividend, so the age dividend that we have, or the demographics dividend that we call it. I see that a lot of us are actually trying to solve for it. On the other side, we also probably should start thinking about that, let's say in 5-7 years timeline, if we end up skilling a large part of our workforce, how are we thinking about generating jobs for them? Because that's also something which is a bottleneck right now.
No, that's a very valid point, and I want to take out 2-3 themes from everything that all of you shared. One is around how this. Pratham, you mentioned that the piece around what does good pedagogy look like and why is that important, right? So not many founders talk about that, even in the ecosystem, and I've been investing for the last 3 years. So just curious to understand, how do you think about, and you seem to suggest that that's how you would like to scale, scaling the idea. How do you think about scaling the idea? Like, do you have any sense of what will that movement sort of look like?
No, I think before we can scale the idea, we have to make sure that this idea actually works and this pedagogy actually works. So we have had 2 cohorts that have graduated, 60 students each. And we have a 3rd cohort graduating this year. And we have a larger 4th cohort with around 300 students that will graduate next year. And we keep doing certain experiments to figure out whether what we are teaching them and the way we are teaching them actually works better than, let's say, what an IIM is doing or what a Harvard is doing. And once we have that result, then we can go to market with that result. And we can say, hey, listen, see that the students who perhaps started off as B+ or A-, they're graduating with an A+ job, right? So our moment of truth came when last year, or the year before that, in fact, Bain, BCG, and McKinsey, all three of them recruited our students. And our students were B plus A minus on the IIM CAT scale, right? Yet they were able to get recruited by these companies and crack their front-end roles. And so that gave us some confidence that, hey, listen, let's work on this a little bit more. Let's make the challenge a little bit more difficult for us. Can we beat IIMs and ISBs of the world? Even when it comes to the average placement salaries that the students are able to get, again, with A minus, B plus students. And we are seeing good results, and hopefully over the next 5 years, those results we can replicate with larger and larger cohorts. As that happens, our rankings will improve. So as I mentioned, our target is to get into the top 10. That's Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, Yale, Stern, Sloan, INSEAD, LBS, Northwestern. We should be 9 or 10, right? And if we are able to be 9 or 10 within 5 years of our founding, then people across the world will be like, okay, what did these guys do? Like, let's look at it at least, right? And that's hopefully how the idea for the new pedagogy will scale, that other people will be like, okay, they've done some research, it's clearly worked for them, let's replicate it.
I think there's a longer conversation on efficacy methods, but I'll park that for now. I think Anil and Ashish, both of you start from day one with scale in mind. That's the fundamental assumption or the design choice you've made in your businesses. Now, the biggest challenge when it comes to scale in mind in India, ironically, is around both engagement and monetization. Because the consumer segments that you cater to also struggle with, they come from backgrounds where both are difficult to solve for, and they're very hard problems. So would love to understand from both of you how each of you has approached both monetization and engagement.
Sure. So you rightly said, so this is monetization or building sustainable business out of it is a big challenge actually. But I think the biggest advantage for us as a B2C company is that it's a huge population. And if we want to think of tier 2, tier 3 and beyond, it is 80–90% of the population, right? And when we want to look at one particular student, so you might think that the kind of monetization is very limited because paying capacity is very limited. But when you multiply that with number of people who are looking to get this education or aspire for your courses, then it suddenly becomes big. So, so in our case, we build for scale because, so if I generally talk of our platform, every month, roughly 30 million people come to our platform to get some kind of education or guidance. Out of that, roughly 1 million are paid users also, more than 1 million. So this requires for scale. And because there is a scale, then the whole model also works. See, in our case, how we look at it, more than business, what is our thought, how we are impacting or what the change we are bringing. If we look at India, paying capacity varies, and especially for these people is very low. And if we think of offline world, then education is very costly, right? And especially test prep. So our major forte in India is test prep. Most of the courses are around test prep, where courses are very costly. They range in they will go in the range of $1,000 to $1,500, or let's say even more. While we are delivering those courses through online mode, and we have this economy of scale, these courses, the prices of these courses come down by 1/10. So we are able to provide our courses in, let's say, between $50 to $100 in this range. So somebody who is in a village, who is in a small place, they have limited earning capacity or paying capacity. These guys are able to afford these online courses as compared to affording any or taking any offline course, and while getting highest quality of education. One of the other thing which is very peculiar when you go to smaller places in India, India also has multiple languages. It's a country where people speak more than 20 different languages. So generally when we think of education, we think in terms of Hindi, which is, let's say, national language in India, or sometimes in English. But 80% of the people, which includes Hindi also, 80% of the people speak vernacular, right? So vernacular and affordability. I think if you really want to empower people in India and you want to really help them in terms of accessibility of education, so these are the two things which matter the most, and these are the focus areas.
And how do you, just to double click on that, it comes down to your point, really engaging with them on both those pieces, right? So how do you approach engagement? Because that is something that I know Adda has been focusing on for many years now.
Right. So I'll say our model, our education model has been informative and bit gamified. So these are the two components. One of the problem for these kids who are in smaller places is lack of information. They want to know what to study or what can help them in terms of getting job or what are the latest skills they should probably learn. So people are looking for information. So this is the India which is dreaming big. And the part of dreaming big is figuring out what to do. So that's when these guys come to web or online and they try to search for various options. That's when they land on our platform. Beyond that, most of it is gamified in terms of, let's say, we guide somebody that, okay, you are looking for a job. So let's say there are some jobs in private sector, but then there are a lot of jobs in government sector also. So if you are interested in, let's say, your maths is good, your reasoning part is good, probably you can apply for banking job. And from there, whatever you do on platform, there is this gamification. So you earn some coins, and with those coins, you are able to buy the course to prepare for that exam. So it's a step-by-step process. But I think engagement is the key because these guys are coming from offline world, especially towns and villages. So if you don't engage them on the platform, you lose out them immediately.
Yeah. So in our case, the good part about thinking about monetization is that the price point of the programs are already set. Like the programs that we are sort of giving to the students, the price point is already set. Now the internal metric that we track is that one, we do not obviously want to change that price point. Let's say if I'm giving them multiple times better offering, I don't want to create a price point. Let's say if other colleges in the similar segment are charging 5,000 rupees, I go ahead and price our product at 10,000, let's say dollars. So that's not something that we try and achieve. What we try and achieve is that we try to price our programs as closer to the other colleges and universities in the similar segment, but make the offering multiple times better for the student. So can they get 100%, 200%, 300% better offering when it comes to curriculum, when it comes to pedagogy, when it comes to delivery of classrooms, quality of teachers, placements, number of job opportunities, actual salaries. So we believe that in the same money which they were anyway spending in the college, can you provide them a much, much superior offering in the same price band? So that's how we think about monetization. Engagement is very tricky to think in a higher education business, because in a higher education business, whenever we are thinking about engagement, we have the audience captive with us, because there are, let's say, in every single college and university, there are attendance criteria that, let's say, you have to attend 70%, 75% attendance. And that's where I personally feel that the game starts going in a different direction, because you are not getting feedback from your customers whether they are liking your product or not. You're not actually understanding if they are in the classroom because of your teaching methodology, your quality of delivery, or just they want credit and they want marks on your classroom participation. That's the reason they are in the classroom. So internally at Sunstone, one metric that we have built for ourselves is that assume that your student is not your captive. Assume that he can drop out of your program after every single class. If you start thinking like that, then you will start creating a product so that he is engaged with you in every single class. And that is the real sort of test of metric for us. So in higher education, typically we never sort of talk about education, that on an average, what is the, let's say, attendance percentage of your for every single class, whether you are in, let's say, 50 percentile or you are in 80% or 85, 90% attendance. Because if you are providing something which is meaningful to the student, it can be anything. It can be the way you deliver, it can be case studies, it can be learning by doing, it can be anything. But if you are providing something which is relevant for the student and he is learning, he will definitely be there in the classroom. But if you are not able to provide that, that's when he's not there. So one thing which I think it's not just the completion rate of the programs that we should be tracking. Ultimate, the real test when the rubber hits the ground moment is the number of percentage of attendance that your program is able to get.
Got it. And can I just segue a little bit? There is the elephant in the room of tech and AI and jobs, but before we get there, for both Pratham and Ashish, how do you look at the whole faculty piece? Because again, the challenges are different for each of you. So would love to understand how you've approached, what are the design choices you've made there?
Yeah. You want to start?
So for us, faculty is a very, very critical part of the puzzle. Not only because that you want to get best of the faculties, because the segment that we are operating in, like we are not creating McKinsey's consultant, and we never plan to create McKinsey's consultant. What we are creating is that, okay, somebody who can give data to McKinsey's consultant in a shape and form which reduces the work of, let's say, a McKinsey consultant. Similarly, all the back-end jobs, let's say all the finance and account jobs, all the banking jobs, all the current account, saving account job, all the sales jobs. So for these jobs, you truly don't need a Harvard professor or a PhD from a great college to come and teach student. What you really need is a person who can handhold students. And that's what we have also seen in our classroom. Let's say if there is one faculty who has great subject matter expertise but is not able to handhold his students and take him to the subject, let's say course outcomes, his feedback or overall rating would be, let's say, 6 on 10. But if there is another faculty who may not be a subject matter expert or a master faculty, but actually pays attention to every single student, handholds them, his feedback sort of goes through the roof, and 9.5. So in our segment, what I truly believe is that it's much easier to train the faculties on the subject matter, because you have created the subject matter, you know, okay, this is exactly something that you need to teach your student. So it's much easier for us to train the teachers on subject matter. The biggest part of the problem in our case is how do you train these students to how do you train these teachers to handhold the student in the classroom and ensure that the student goes through the curriculum in a very specific and designed manner. So that is where sort of we are working day in and day out to work with the teachers to ensure that they sort of understand the softer aspects of the learning.
So, I'm deeply inspired by medical colleges, right? Medical colleges always have real doctors who come and teach, right? And there are doctors who are doing surgeries in the morning, and they're coming teaching, and they're coming to class in the evening and teaching exactly what they've learned through the day. And that is, I think, what creates the student engaged, and I think that's what creates amazing outcomes for our medical college students in India. The medical college student placement rate, if we were to track that, that's amongst the highest in the world. India produces some of the best doctors. We don't produce some of the best engineers, right? At least out of college. So we took a leaf from that book, and we decided that 50% of our faculty would always be practitioners. So in fact, that's why we built our campus in the middle of the business district. We share our building with BCG, with Bank of America, with Gartner. They're all upstairs. And more often than not, it's people from these companies, going to the elevator, coming downstairs and teaching the students. And again, more often than not, it's students going upstairs and getting apprenticeships and mentorships and shadow programs, etc. So for us, this practitioner model really works. However, each practitioner does need the support of an academic faculty who brings in the rigor of the course, who makes sure that students are actually coming to class, who makes sure that there is proper evaluation standards being followed, that makes sure that each student is tended to. Right. So this, this dual sort of half practitioner, half academic faculty model so far has worked really well for us. The big problem that we see, and Bill Gates, he was talking about it, right, Bill Gates, that motivation is a big problem. That students don't feel motivated to come to class. They don't feel motivated to learn. They don't see the point in that course. Why should I study calculus? What am I going to use it for? So when you have a practitioner in the class, students are just in awe of that practitioner. The case studies come alive in front of them. They'll study, they'll come to class just because of the person who's teaching the course, right? And the person who's teaching the course also teaches in a way that makes sense and that is required for the job. They don't like beat around the bush. They don't talk about the theory separately and there's a practical on Fridays, like separately. Everything is practical. And that's how it works. I think still the way we look at the future is there a possibility, and we're not sure whether the answer is yes or no, is there a possibility that we can be teacher agnostic? Can education be delivered in a way that is not dependent on the teacher? Can artificial intelligence play a role there, that the teacher becomes completely defunct? Right? It's a very pointed statement and it's very controversial, but I really think that maybe 5 to 10 year future might start looking a little bit more like that.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating how across all of these sectors there are so many common strands. I think unbundling of design and delivery, movement towards teachers being coaches, as opposed to anything to do with the subject matter, to your point, and solving for motivation seems to be interesting. And on that note, I think it's the time to talk about technology and automation rather, and the impact of automation on jobs, because a lot of India's growth over the last 20, 25 years has been being there because of labor cost arbitrage. And we are going to see that getting stressed in some way or the other, given ChatGPT. So would love to understand how each of you is thinking about career pathways for your students. I think the other macro trend that we do see is shrinkage of government jobs, which we would assume reduce over a period of time. So given both of these trends, would love to know how you think about designing for the right pathways and nudging students onwards that.
Right. So definitely things are changing very fast. Technologies are coming up. ChatGPT is one big disruptor. So I think this is the time when, so India as a country is, I will say, people are very much using all kind of online platforms, and they are used to, they understand the trends and all. And I believe that this is the time when these graduates which are coming out of colleges and universities, they are acknowledging these new trends, new job trends, as a trends also and as opportunities also. So I believe for a country like India, the biggest opportunities in terms of learning new as digital skills. Although, as you said, that ChatGPT might be one of the disruptor and which might also take away some jobs. But if we look at the broader picture, then new kind of jobs are coming up in a large way globally, where Indian talent and India is like, it's a young country and a lot of people are in that age bracket where they are looking for new opportunities or they are willing to learn new skills also. So what we see on our platform is that people are now very open and keen to learn these digital skills. For example, SEO, search engine optimization. So this is a skill which can be taught over a period of 1 month. And this is also a skill, if you learn the skill, you can get a job globally, anywhere across the world. So in my opinion, these new age skills, and mostly digital skills, will become the new kind of jobs for masses in India over the time. And these guys will be working globally, not only for Indian companies or solving Indian problems, but they will be solving global problems also.
Yeah. So I fundamentally believe that whenever there is a wave of automation, let's say manufacturing wave of automation, before that manufacturing wave of automation, we used to create everything by hand. And then sort of computers came in, and then also this debate came in that whether the jobs there will be lesser and lesser jobs. But we found ways to create more jobs because as a human race, we probably learn that how do we handle this wave of automation, how we sort of make it more productive for the human race, which sort of help us grow faster, become more productive. And I see similar things probably will happen with ChatGPT as well, where what we need to learn is that how do we use ChatGPT better. And obviously, how do we become more productive with ChatGPT? So, and it's not just ChatGPT, it's just an entire AI wave, and it's just the beginning of what we are seeing. Probably we'll see many, many more things in next 12 to 18 months. But as like Sam Altman yesterday also said, that as humans, we don't know how to be idle. So we will find work for ourselves. It's just that we have to become more productive. We have to become more smarter. And definitely to your point that now as someone who, let's say, running a new age skills sort of a company, how should we think about it? So we have to be very, very nimble and figure out that, okay, what are those core skill set which needs to be inculcated in the curriculum, in pedagogy, what are the new kind of jobs which will be coming, and how our students sort of would be ready for these jobs. So the task is upon us now to ensure that our students, how can they be relevant in future? So that's something on us now to figure it out.
I think our stance is that creative jobs or entrepreneurial jobs or entrepreneurship in itself is not something that would perhaps get disrupted by ChatGPT or language models. And at the level that we are operating, where it's a premium program, there are only 200, 250 students at one point in time. We believe that if we can push our students towards entrepreneurship, which was anyways required, by the way, in Indian colleges, in IIMs, even Harvard. I went to Wharton, and literally out of a class of 800 kids, 3 chose entrepreneurship out of Wharton, 3, right? And IIM's number is even worse than that. So, I think our stance would be to push our students towards thinking about starting companies, leveraging the new technologies to do that, do it smarter. But in terms of the current jobs in India and the jobs that India's economy is so dependent on, which is services, I see a huge shift just over the last 3 to 4 months. One of our associate universities is in Punjab. And every year, around 5,000 to 6,000 jobs would come from 5 companies, TCS, HCL, Infosys, right? 5,000 to 6,000 jobs every year. It's been happening for the last 15 years. This year, the number is 800. It's 800. It's what, 1/10 almost, right? 1/8. And we don't see it getting better, right? And they're coming and telling us, hey, listen, we don't need those systems integrator folks anymore, right? Can you give us some UI UX folks, because that's not yet disrupted by AI? Can you give us some kids who can do better sales? So our business school placements are all right, but tech placements, right? And thinking about SEO, I think we need ChatGPT optimization rather than search engine optimization now. So how that would change is something that we think about a little bit. But I'm scared. I am honestly scared for India, because India is over-indexed on service jobs. And the future of service jobs in the short term, till the time we figure out how to make use of our time, is going to be not looking very good.
Yeah, I think reskilling is going to be very painful, seems to be the general conclusion. Got it. So, all 3 of you are working in very complex sectors, and it's no mean feat to set up any sustainable business in India, leave alone one in education. So would love to understand what keeps each of you going as we work through some of these very dramatic changes in the landscape. You have a lot of things coming together. We have deep changes in technology, we have the demographic dividend, and we have a lot of other geopolitical constraints. So what keeps each of you going in this situation?
So for us, when we started with a very clear mission that we want to operate in this tier 3 segment and ensure that students who are coming from those families, like nobody in their entire family tree has ever worked in corporate, can we move them from their villages, their tier 3 towns, and move them to maybe a larger city where they start working with a large corporate. So this is the skill gap, or this is sort of making India more urbanized, or sort of creating and completely changing the sort of socio-economic status of a student family. That's the heart, or that's the purpose with which we started. And truly what keeps us going is this every single day. And one thing which I truly feel inspired and happy is that we have been true to our mission. It's been 4 years since we started, and the last batch that graduated, 60% of them were the first ones in their entire family tree to ever work in a corporate. More than 25% of our students come from farming background. Close to 25% student comes from families which have a very small business ownership, like a local kirana store, or they are sons of auto drivers or something like that. So this is something which keeps us going every single day.
I come from a small village in UP, and my parents never went to school. Somehow I struggled a lot in my childhood to get education, and those were the times when internet was not there, right? Because in a village, you are not getting education, you don't have proper education, and there are no opportunities also, right, in terms of jobs and all. Somehow I got into IIT and got into corporate and all. But when I used to think about my village and my friends, my colleagues in village, I used to feel very bad about them. I always used to think that these guys can do better. They have potential. They are smart, but they don't have opportunity. They were not given proper education. So I used to think, what can I do about them? So when I started this company, this was a clear mission that can we take education to every village in India? Can we empower every student in a village somehow, whether parents are educated or not, whatever is their financial condition, but can we ensure that everybody, every student can get proper information? Can they get high quality education while still being affordable? Can we create that level playing field for them, for everyone to get that education? And motivation, everyday motivation, I will tell you what is it for us. So one of the big segment where we operate is government test prep. So we help students prepare for various jobs in government sector. And there are hundreds of exams, roughly 400, 500 different exams. Almost every week, result of some exam will come and we will get a mail from some student that I got selected in this job and now I have this job and thank you so much, it is because of you. So when we get such mails and when people are getting jobs, and this happens almost every day, this is the biggest motivation for us every day.
I think for us, it's about the satisfaction that we get after we have cracked a learning model. Right? When we see that, hey, listen, this lesson, the way we taught, actually was received by students a lot better than the way they've been learning it since forever. That aha moment, that eureka moment, really keeps us going. The other thing is that it's very interesting. Uber has to compete with Ola and Lyft, right? But in education, my major competitors are like IIMs, right? And they pretend like I don't even exist, right? So they say, oh no, we don't have any competition. So that's a great thing for me because I'm literally not competing with anybody, right? Whenever I come up with some new idea or whenever we publish our results, whenever we do something that's active in the industry, no one's tracking us, no one's trying to one-up us. And what that makes us believe is that we can easily beat them in rankings, both in India and internationally as well. And we can do that much sooner and in a much more smarter way. So that lack of competition and that empty space, right, where no one's ever innovated in education, at least at the level that we are playing, gives us this confidence that, hey, listen, we can get to this top 10 ranking in 5 years. And I think that would be a great victory, not just for us, but also for India. And we keep complaining as Indians that none of our universities are top 100. And we think we could be the solution to that. That really wakes me up in the morning.
Okay, on that inspirational note, big thank you to all three of you. And congratulations on what you've built. And we wish you all the very best. And please feel free to reach out to them and pose your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.